All right, guys. Well, welcome to Between Sets with Frankie Seda. Today's guest is very special. It is another Anthony we got coming on. And St. Pat's alumni. I think you guys are going to really enjoy the conversation we had. We just finished up. Anthony's an attorney, Chicago guy, community leader, husband, father, Wings board member, and just someone who believes that leadership begins with showing up for people. You're going to hear us talk about Chicago, faith, family, mentorship, service, and I don't know, and questions that feel more important with each passing year. I guess, what does service and protecting others really look like in 2026? That's what I wanted to get out of this interview with Anthony, and I think I accomplished that. But I do got to say something, because the older that I'm getting, the less certain I've become about a lot of things. And strangely enough, the more certain I become about a few. A few months ago, I started this little podcast, and honestly, it was, with the thought I was just going to ask some questions. Oh, and look, I got Kobe here. Hey, Kobe. Here, get down. But, what I didn't expect was how many answers I'd actually find. My father sat in that chair, Ron, Anthony Ramundi. We had Vito. Andrea was absolutely wonderful to go, to go see her. And now I brought another Anthony, Pasquini, in here. And different people, different lives. And yet I feel like every single conversation seems to always drift towards the same place. It's not success. It's not politics. We talk a little money, but it's about responsibility, heritage, values. And I think it's funny how that happens. Nobody, sat down and said exactly the exact same thing. But underneath all of it, we were all kind of saying the same thing. I see my father, spent his life protecting people. Ron's protecting culture. And Vito, he invests so much in young people that he doesn't have to. I think for me, he's one of the mentors of mentors for myself. And now you'll meet Anthony. Anthony's someone who seems so selfless, works with Wings, humble. He's strengthening families, protecting people, giving, men or women or children a place to, a true refuge where there's a need for one. But different roads, same destination, I guess, and somewhere all in the middle of all of that, I guess I started thinking about my own story. I see my father, I see my mother, I see Chicago, baseball. I see every scar, every mistake. When I look in the mirror, my lessons. My father taught me how to stand. My mother taught me how to feel. And Lori, my stepmother, she kind of brought it all together for me and made me understand the balance in life and the yin and yang. And I don't know, it's just been such a joy for me. Life has taught me that all of it matters. But you got to have strength, and strength without compassion, it just becomes like a hard heart. But compassion without strength, it's fragile, it's weak, and you need both. And I think about like other things, out of the darkness. It's a suicide for the survivors of suicide. It's a walk overnight, and they go to all the different cities, one city every year. And I've done it, and this year it's in Chicago. And I just think about these events that actually happen, that Anthony's got going on that are in Chicago, and it just gives me really, really a lot of hope. And I think it's not because so much, it's an event, not even that it's on my calendar, and you guys will hear us, my mom, it happened. My mom died by suicide. I was 15, but 25 years later, it's still a part of who I am today. Not all of me, but a part of me. Just like my father's service is a part of me and who I am. Chicago isn't, you'll hear me say it, isn't just my hometown. It's one of the people that raised me. That's what I was telling Anthony. You fall 8 times, you get up 9, and it's cliche, but it's true. Nobody, writes books about these people, but they should. And the more I'm doing these interviews, it's taught me that the best people that I meet aren't the famous ones. And maybe it's just the way it goes. They're just good people. They're doing their best. honestly carrying more than anyone knows. The older I get, the more I think that's what leadership actually is. Not just being in front, not just being out there, but being there. Period. Being there when it matters. Being there when it's inconvenient. Being there when nobody's watching. And being there when somebody just really needs you. That they're not gonna be able to do it themselves, right? Maybe that's a father, a mother, a friend, a mentor, a complete stranger that you help. I don't know. Maybe it's your cat Kobe, but I just know that every important person in my life has that quality. They showed up, and maybe that's why these conversations have meant so much to me, because every guest that I keep bringing on, I don't know, they keep showing up. What I hear is for their family, for their community, for their city, and for something bigger than themselves. And I continue to say it, but I keep getting older, and the more I think about life, I think that's the whole ball game. It's not what we earned. It's not what you even owe. It's not the title on your business card. Who'd you help? Who'd you protect? Who did you love? Who'd you show up for? Maybe in the end, that's the only scoreboard that actually really matters. I'm still figuring it out myself, and I think we're getting closer. Which brings me back to Anthony, because when Anthony first reached out about the upcoming Wings Men Alliance Luncheon, I thought we were going to talk about just an event. But what we ended up talking about was something much bigger, and you guys are going to see that. Anthony's he's a king for responsibility, faith, family, service. The importance of men like him in today's world, I can't speak enough about. But you'll listen to his heart, the values, and you might just find some piece of your own in Anthony's story. So without much else to say, I'm Frankie Seda. This is going to be Anthony's interview between sets, and I think you guys are going to enjoy it. So here we go. All right, guys. Well, welcome to Between Sets with Frankie Seda. I'm very excited to have Anthony here. First off, thank you for being here. Just to give you guys a little background, a few weeks ago, Anthony reached out regarding this upcoming Wings Men's Alliance Luncheon. That's taking place June 11th at the Four Seasons Hotel in Chicago. And we're definitely going to talk about all that today, and the importance that Wings is doing and that Anthony's doing to be part of the solution, and how men can help that. But before we get into organizations, titles, board memberships, and all the things that you've accomplished, I want to get to know you personally, Anthony, because some conversations are about what we've accomplished, and others about what we're responsible for. And I think the best way to understand what a person stands for is to first understand who they are. So let's start there. The man, Anthony. So, people see the attorney, the board member, the community leader. And when the suit comes off, the meetings are, over, and you're sitting around the dinner table with your family. Who's Anthony?
So Anthony is, well, first and foremost, thank you for having me on the show. It's a pleasure being here today, and I appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about myself and the work that we've been doing. But who am I? I grew up in Melrose Park. My family's been there for well over 30 years at this point. My grandparents moved there once they get settled with their own family, my mom and my aunts. My dad's from Elmwood Park. His family grew up there as well. I went to an all-boys Catholic high school on the northwest side of Chicago, St. Patrick High School. And that's really, I think, where a lot of where I have gone in the later years of my life with my career really started. St. Pat's was a great facility. It was a great learning institution. It still is. It's one of those places where you truly walk in a boy, and not only do you learn the important lessons of your schoolwork, responsibility, but you learn the responsibilities of being a man. And so I'm very grateful for the time that I had spent over at St. Patrick High School. Met all my best friends there. Almost everyone that was in my wedding party were guys that I've known since I was 14, 15, some from first grade. It's been a staple of my life, and the way that I've grown up to remember where I came from, and to really understand the importance of community. And it really all started back then, seeing how a group of young men can come together, in a school environment, team environment. Grew up playing water polo, which was a great sport. Highly encourage anyone that's never watched a game to go watch a game, especially during the Olympics. Those are some of the best games that you'll ever see. But yeah, that's really where it all began. Growing up in Melrose Park on the Northwest Side, going to St. Pat's, meeting just some of the best friends that you could ever ask for in the entire world, and really laying that foundation of what's important to us, taking care of each other, taking care of our families, making sure that we're all safe and secure. So, that's definitely the beginning of the story.
I got to ask you then, now I'm going to date you. What year did you graduate?
2006.
Okay, so I graduated from Notre Dame High School in 2003.
Oh, okay,
And
all
so,
right. We've got
so
a
we
Don
just,
here.
yeah, no, and we could tell some jokes, but I'm gonna leave that but no, it was so much fun, and the rivalry between us. My dad he's a retired Chicago police officer, but he went to St. Pat's, and so that when
Okay.
I had the choice, and a lot of my best friends, the Angelos, went to Pat's. You probably know them, but yeah, it's been a joy. And I had never known about water polo, but one of my best friends played for Loyola, and I mean it was phenomenal to watch. So I highly recommend. That's a great sport. That's a sleeper. That's a sleeper one.
It is. It
Um,
is. It gets bypassed a lot, but once it gets its hooks in you, it's fun to watch.
yeah. Well, and now Anthony, what was your first car driving around at St. Pat's?
Oh, 1994 Pontiac Bonneville.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I had a 1990 Buick Riviera, pearl white, man. Yeah, I wanted to get the Vogues, but my dad's like, "You're not getting the Vogues." I said, yeah, no, that's awesome. So, obviously, values are so important, and I can see that you hold them in you. So, what did your parents teach you that still guide you today in life? Obviously, they got you to Pats, but which ones do you still find yourself leaning into most often today?
Definitely the importance of community and helping each other. Not just within your family, but I grew up. We'd go downtown for family events, just to go downtown, see the Christmas lights, whatever it is. And it's not a new thing. It's been around for as long as you and I have been around, since as long as society has existed. There are people that struggle, and you see people on the street that need food, that need money. And there was never an instance where I don't remember, walking downtown and, my mom or dad asking, the other one, "Hey, you got a couple bucks, a couple singles of five, to give to the guy on the street corner." That it was moments like that. I'll never forget those. I remember my dad doing it. I remember my mother doing it. And it's something that I take with me. My wife and I go downtown, or we're driving around. We live out in DuPage County, so we see someone on the street corner and they're asking for help. "Hey, you got a couple singles on you? I didn't go to the bank today." We try to give back wherever that we can. There were times at work that my father would see young kids that would come in the fall and winter time, and they wouldn't have the right kind of coat on, and my dad would give them the coat off of his back, and he'd come in the next day and have a coat for them, to make sure that they could get to work, and not be freezing on the bus, or driving into work, whatever it was. So that sense of community, eh, charity, a, another really great example, that was instilled in my sister and I very young, was charity. I remember my sister, it was either her eighth grade graduation party or maybe her birthday that year. She didn't ask, when she had a party, she didn't ask her friends for cards and for gifts. She asked them to donate to St. Jude's Hospital. So that's been a part of us for our entire lives. It's in
That
our
that
DNA to help people.
It's absolutely incredible to hear that. And one of the reasons I started this Between Sets thing is just to get to know people that matter to Chicago. And this next question I was going to ask you, you kind of already answered in what you were saying, because when I don't know, when we think Chicago and the neighborhoods and the people experiences, and I think about what's the moments that help shaped me, and I was going to ask you, what are the moments that help shape you? I think you're just explaining it right now. Because I mean, I can remember going, so many stories going downtown with the families. It's, part of it, I feel like sometimes I say like the city's its own person because it helped raise us in its own way. It does have its own heartbeat. So was there a specific moment in life that you did realize that those people looking around that you're like, they're going to depend on me, and everything changed for you, where your mindset started to kind of feel that responsibility?
Yeah, I don't think I really understood that until much later. I went to DePaul University for my undergraduate degree, and my experience there was great. And I had long known that I wanted to be an attorney. It was something that my mom and I would talk about. It was something my grandma would always tell me, like, Anthony, be a lawyer, be a lawyer. You'll be all right if you're a lawyer. So I followed their lead. They were the guiding forces in my life. So I knew that I wanted to be a lawyer. I don't think I quite understood what it meant to be a lawyer, or what the real purpose behind it was. So, when those lessons really all came to a head was when I was in law school and I was trying to figure out what kind of law I wanted to practice. I thought I wanted to go into corporate law. I thought I wanted to go into big law. And I tried that. I worked at a small firm doing some private practice stuff, and it wasn't resonating with me. And I had a really good friend at law school who said, hey, do you have any interest in government work and criminal prosecution maybe? And I knew Law and Order, but I was ignorant to it. I didn't know. And I said, sure, I'll take a look at it. And so I applied at the Cook County State's Attorney's Office for a law clerk program. I got accepted into it, and they're growing up Italian. The number 13 is always something to look out for. I interviewed on the 13th floor at 26th in California. I think it may have actually even been on the 13th of June, St. Anthony's Feast Day. But I interviewed there. I got my assignment there. And I remember telling my mom and my grandma about it, and they were, through the roof, so happy. Make sure you say an extra prayer to St. Anthony. But it was, and I say that because St. Anthony brings us to, helps us find our way. And I think that's where I began to find my way, was truly walking through the halls of 26 in California, seeing the courthouse, being able to go and tour inside the courtroom, and then talking to these attorneys that, had dedicated themselves to public service and had dedicated themselves to evaluating some of the ugliest parts of society. And I think all those lessons that I had been taught growing up, through my grandparents, my parents, my sister, it just all kind of came to a head, and I realized that this is what I want to do. I want to help people. This is what being a lawyer is. People don't go to. It's very, very few and far between that people go to attorneys for help with good things. It's usually when they're in a bind. So I think that's really learned.
Well, that's awesome. God bless your story, and I think the synchronicities too. At some point, even for me, there's a difference between like when you find the success versus like the significance. When you find that significant, it clicks for you. And I feel like that's when that lesson really happened for you. Now, you did call me up a couple weeks ago and I'm really glad you did, and you reached out. But the real reason that you did reach out originally was because you have this date, June 11th, and I do want to talk about, out of all the organizations you could have devoted your time and talents to, because you do have it, and you're even from St. Pat's, my friend. What was it about Wings that really grabbed your heart, and wouldn't let it go? Because there were a lot of different organizations you could have got involved with.
Sure. The great thing with Wings, and it's not it's a little bit of a convoluted answer. So, I was a criminal prosecutor for 8 years, practicing law for just over 12 now. And working in prosecution work, you see really bad parts of society. You see the worst parts of people. But you also, in a very strange way, you get to see the best part of people as well. And it's those moments in between, people dealing with anger and sadness that they just want to see accountability in people, hopefully not having to experience what they had to experience. So when I was a prosecutor, I worked on, I was assigned to a misdemeanor domestic violence courtroom for a little bit over a year. I worked in felony screening divisions where we would assist police officers in investigating criminal sexual assault cases, domestic batteries, aggravated domestic batteries, murders, anything that you can get your hands on. That's what we worked on. And, it's an eye-opening experience. And so the world of domestic violence was not one that I was ignorant to. It was something that I had firsthand experience in, through my profession. I'm very fortunate to say I didn't experience it myself in my personal life. So, I am one of the lucky ones. But there are certainly, a number of examples of how, even though I didn't experience it personally, we're all not immune to it. It's people, whether you realize it or not, people that experience domestic violence. So the way I got involved with, yeah,
the ripple effect, yeah,
exactly, yeah. So the way I got involved with Wings was they were hosting their first annual domestic violence summit in the fall of 2024, and it was at the Union League Club of Chicago. The keynote speaker for that event was Denise Brown, who is Nicole Brown Simpson's sister. For those of you who don't know, or maybe you're a little too young watching this, Nicole Brown Simpson was married to O.J. Simpson. He was a NFL player, and he was charged with the murder of his wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, which he was acquitted on after trial. But the evidence was really profoundly stacked against him. And it was a very controversial finding. But Nicole was murdered ruthlessly. And Denise, after the loss of her sister, really, she had her own struggles. Her family had their own struggles. But she really, really dug into advocacy. So she was the keynote speaker at that event, and hearing her recount the things that they found in Nicole's house, diaries hidden under the kitchen sink because she knew OJ wasn't going to go look under there, and the things that they read and had to internalize and face the realities of, this is what happened to our daughter, my sister. And it was so impactful. But the real issue that day, which it wasn't geared towards what I'm about to say, it just kind of happened. But from the beginning of the day, I watched every presenter go up on stage and say, we need more men in this movement. There's not enough men. Take a look around the room and how many men are in here. Well, I did that in the morning, and I'll be the first to admit, I looked around and I didn't understand the messaging. I said, well, I'm a guy and I see a whole bunch of other guys in here, but 86% of victims in domestic violence are women and children. One in every 9 seconds, there's an occurrence of domestic abuse that is happening. One in 3 women are subject to domestic violence or sexual violence, and when you really start breaking down the numbers, it is concerning, and you don't realize these things because we don't talk about it enough.
Now, Anthony, is that for? I got to cut you off because that seems like a lot. Is that for the United States, or that's like worldwide?
That's the United States.
Okay. All right.
Once you really start expanding the numbers,
Wow.
it becomes even more significant. Another startling statistic is, which we're seeing a rise in, is that if you are the victim of domestic violence that involves strangulation, there is somewhere around a 750% chance that you will be murdered by that partner. So there are a lot of things that you need to look out for. When you're in a relationship and when you're watching and evaluating your friends and families in relationships. But at that event, the again, the message, which was not intended for that day, but it kind of haphazardly turned into it. And thankfully it did. But as the day went on, I noticed that more men were leaving the event. More people in general were leaving the event, but when you've already got a limited number of men, it
Noticed.
became apparent to me why they were saying, look
Yeah.
around the room every time. There was a reason for it. And during one of the presentations, I heard it for the last time that I could. I got frustrated, and so I said, I got to do something. I can't sit here and not do anything anymore.
Yeah.
I've got a voice. I've got to use it. And so I reached out to my bar association president. I reached out to the Wings General Hotline. Both of them responded within 24 hours. I talked to someone from Wings, gave them my story, and the next thing I know, I'm getting an email from their CEO asking if she can interview me, and if I had asked me if I had any interest in joining their board. I immediately said yes without hesitation, and since then we've been on a really difficult but great journey trying to help as many people as we can.
Man. No, that's it's service at the highest level, and taking what you're doing, and I guess it's really important because there are going to be some people that know the name Wings, but don't fully understand the mission. So maybe we should say, what exactly is Wings, and why does it matter, so we could have just clear clarity
Yep.
on that.
Absolutely. Wings is a domestic violence shelter. It's a domestic violence advocacy group. We primarily have acted as a safe house, a survivor program. So Wings has a few different safe house locations within the northwestern suburbs. We have one in Chicago. We refer to that one as Wings Metro. A lot of the formative parts of Wings was established through Rahm Emanuel when he was the mayor of Chicago. He was really integral in getting that Wings Metro facility started. Wings also has, on top of the safe houses, we also have resale shops, places where victims and survivors can go to replenish themselves. Hey, I need furniture for this. I need clothes for this. There's a number of different programs we have that assist our clients that come through looking for help, to help them find work, to help them find school, to make sure that they have the resources that they need to go on and live without their abusive partner. And the reason why Wings really has focused on not just the shelters themselves, but these programs, is because people don't understand, because we don't talk about it enough. It's for some reason this taboo hush hush, backroom conversation about, oh, did you hear what happened to so and so? But there are, I don't call them red flags, but they're a little bit above a yellow flag. So I've been referring them over the last 2 years as orange flags. The ones that kind of fall in between, where you're questioning a little bit, but by the time a person is subject to domestic violence, like when those cases would come across my desk as a prosecutor, we're already well into the cycle. It starts with emotional abuse, it starts with financial abuse, there's isolation involved, sexual abuse, there's hate speech and aggressive language that's used against partners to diminish their confidence and the way that they see themselves, so that they isolate. So Wings understood the cycle of violence, and what really attracted me to them was that's where the conversation needs to begin, is not what's already happened. How did we get here? We need to talk about the beginning process. What was that first step, and what do we need to look out for, so that people can avoid and learn how to get out of their violent situation that they're in.
I guess because there's going to be a lot of guys watching this today, and they're, so you've said, it's important. It's not just a woman issue. It requires men to get involved, to be part of the solution. So, what can the average man that is watching today, like what does it actually look like to help? How can they get involved? What
Sure.
can they do? Because I mean, you're sparking my interest.
Sure. So one thing I do want to clarify is you're absolutely right. It's a person issue. The majority of victims are women and children, right? 86%. But there's that remaining 14%. That's where men come in. Part of what I think, my own ideology on this is, as a man, and I think especially for particularly guys like you and I who grew up Italian men in Italian neighborhoods, there is this emphasis on strength, being a strong figure. Well, what does strength mean, and how has that changed over time? For me, I think in the year 2026, strength is really defined by the accountability that we hold ourselves to. And that involves being vulnerable and being able to talk about, what you have going on in your day, how your mental health is, your emotions, and realizing that exposing your vulnerability doesn't make you weak. It's actually building up your strength to be a partner, to be a teammate, to be a friend, a brother, whatever, to the person sitting next to you or across from you, to understand, hey, these are the things that I'm struggling with. Maybe you're struggling with it too, and now we can have a conversation about it and do better. But specifically to Wings, Wings has every opportunity in the world to get involved. If you've got opportunities to volunteer, we always need help in the resale shops. We always need help with events. We've got a couple that are coming up in the next couple of weeks. We've got some ones that we're planning for the next year or so, but volunteers always go a long way. Donations, it doesn't have to be monetary. If you've got clothes, you've got furniture, devices that you need to get rid of that have been sitting on the shelf, like, oh, I should have tossed this a while ago, but it's still got good use. We'll take it. Anything that we can get our hands on to provide to our clients is always a good thing, because on top of adults that come in, we also we were one of the first shelters to allow children and pets to come along.
Oh wow!
Pets being
Okay.
the big one, which was holding a lot of people back from leaving their abusive
100%.
partners. Was they hurt the dog, they hurt the cat. I'm afraid that they're going to kill them. Well, we've Wings.
And they become part of the family. Like you and me, we just
Exactly.
we got to get them out of the room to do the interview, but they're part of the family.
Exactly. They get a little noisy, but they're family.
I
Absolutely.
I'm a geek. I'm a dork for I went to University of St. Francis. Servant leadership, it's overused in HR and stuff like that. You'll hear it in the corporate world, but the perfect servant leader was Jesus, and a lot of what you're saying right now, it's just it gets me geeked, gets me excited, gives me hope, man. Leadership is a word we hear every day, but there's a difference between authority and actually leading people. So I don't know. I appreciate talking to you right off the bat, but I do want to talk about June 11th, because that is the Men's Alliance Luncheon, and what specifically we got going that day, and what are you hoping that people can walk away with that specific day?
Sure. So June 11th, this is the first real kickoff event that I think we've really had for the Men's Alliance. The Men's Alliance was started by one of the attorneys that volunteers with Wings. His name's John Shakota. He himself is a survivor, and he's been a huge advocate for men's voices. So he came up with this idea. Well, was a part of a team, but played a really great leadership role in developing the Men's Alliance. And so June 11th, we are going to have former mayor of Chicago, former ambassador to the United States, Rahm Emanuel. He's going to be there to provide a fireside chat. And I'm very excited to hear what he has to say, because obviously, again, he played a really big role in securing Wings Metro, and has been a massive advocate for Wings and domestic abuse advocacy work. I'm very interested to hear what he has to say about men's voices and how we can be better, what we should be doing. I'm not sure if there's going to be a question and answer part of that, I'm sure there'll be a few questions that are thrown out there, but you know, Rahm Emanuel, again, just a great advocate, someone who's passionate about the topic. He's going to be there to teach us about what he has found important in advocacy work. Tell us a little bit about his journey and why it matters so much to him, and then provide his own insight too. You know, different ways that we can speak up and be better role models and examples to the young people around us, our kids, our cousins, our nephews and nieces. You know, how to be a better leader in your community, and whether that's through action, because for some people it is a call to action. For some people it's a donation. For some people it's volunteering your time. You know, you want to march in a parade, you want to throw a sign and go protest when you think that something wrong is going on. That's, you know, you have to live by your morals and, you know, really dedicate yourself to them. So whatever form that takes, you know, I think that's going to be the message here is to don't be afraid, because there are other men in this community. There's men in your communities and your families, because our circles are always changing, and they're expanding and shrinking and, you know, adapting and changing locations. So, you know, there's always someone that you never know how you're going to impact them. And I can't wait to hear his take on what he thinks and has seen on such a broad scale to really help us implement those lessons into our lives. So that is going to be the driving force of how do we as men use our voices, because it's not always seeing something when you're out to dinner or having a drink at the bar, you know, or walking your dog in the park, whatever it may be, and you see someone getting shoved up against a tree or, you know, pushed up against the wall and saying, hey, I got to interject, and you know, maybe that's not you. Maybe you don't feel comfortable or safe doing that, and maybe that's not the right move for the person that's on the receiving end, you know, of that terrible behavior. So it's really about, you know, adjusting and adapting. And so I think he's going to have a lot of really great insight on that, and have a lot of really encouraging words for us as men to not be afraid to speak out, but also understand that speaking out comes in a myriad of different ways.
Well, and I think there's, you know, we all carry our crosses in different ways. You know, there's the overnight walk that's happening for survivors of suicide in Chicago. That's a rotation thing, that it's out of the darkness. And I've been a part of that since I was 15. I lost my mom, you know, that way. But
Very sorry
the point of this, yeah, no, it's made me really feel certain things, right? And hearing everything that you're saying, you're talking some real big leadership lessons over the, you know, that Rom's going to put out there, and that, you know, you've probably learned in classrooms, seminars, and this over the years. But I got to ask you, what's the biggest, you know, my son's probably going to watch this, and what's the biggest leadership lesson that you've learned that you could pass along to the younger generation, you know, to the guys that are listening?
Sure.
Because I appreciate your insight, Anthony.
Sure. I have been very fortunate in both my personal and professional life to have been led by great examples and had great mentors. I have to give a personal moment to someone that you know, I wouldn't be able to have these conversations with people had it not been for him. I refer to him as the mentor of mentors, because he's mentored so many people. Leonard Amari. He was someone that was a stranger to me. Leonard's an attorney. He was affiliated with the law school that I went to. He ran a mentoring program there. He's a member of the Justinian Society of Lawyers, past president of every organization you can get your hands on. But Leonard believed in helping people. He believes in helping people, and he helped me. He took me under his wing when I was in law school, trying to get into law school. And the only thing that Leonard ever asked from me was, and from anyone that he helped out, you know, I'm not unique. What Leonard has done is very unique. So for every person that he ever helped, all he ever told us was pay it forward. And I think that is lesson number one to young men out there, to young men and women out there. when people ask for help, they're asking for a reason. You don't have to know what that reason is, but Leonard was a stranger to me. I was a stranger to him. He owed me nothing, didn't have to help me out, and he did. And he took me to places that I could have never even dreamed of in my career. So I owe him a lot, and I try to repay that by paying it forward. Mentorship is a big staple of mine as well. But one of the other really important lessons that I was taught that I think is really important for young people to hear now was when I was a young prosecutor. My first day on the job, I had a deputy chief that pulled me aside and he said, "Pasquini, you're a prosecutor now. What's your job?" I said, "Well, put bad guys in jail." And he goes, "No, you have one job and one job only, and that job is to do the right thing." And they're simple words, but I think it says a lot without saying a lot. You got to do the right thing. Yeah, you have to do the right thing, and you have to pay it forward.
Anthony, you are, you got the tough, edgy Chicago, but you got a very gentle, kind heart, man. And I'm really glad we're doing this conversation. I look around because when we talk about this depth of, it's a very serious, heavy stuff, but at the same time, there's so much hope involved with it, and it's hard to explain that to somebody, but I think you understand that. And you work with successful people every day, but what separates those who are successful from just having money, titles, and all that to someone who has value? Tell me the difference between value and money.
That's a great question. Money can. I agree with the old adage: money can't buy you happiness. It can make a lot of things.
It helps.
Yeah, it helps.
Makes it easier.
It helps.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily buy happiness.
Amen.
The measure that I think success should be driven by is not necessarily by your pocketbook, not necessarily by your title, because at the end of the day, those are all things that go away, right? When it's our time to go, we don't take the money with us. We don't. You could chisel the title into a piece of stone all you want, but I don't hold it anymore. But what does last more than anything is how you make people feel and the effect that you have within your communities. And, what was the kids movie? Legends Never Die? Was that,
oh my gosh, that's...
Was that The Sandlot?
Get in trouble. Yes.
It was a
yes.
Sandlot, right?
Yeah. I was just sending these things back. What a movie. What a movie.
But I think there's... No. I forgot the movie.
Me too.
But I think there's a lot to that, and it's not necessarily about being a legend, but it's about having that impact that ripples through time to really measure your success by the happiness of the people around you, because the people around you may not. Man, I'm hitting all the cliche quotes today. They may not remember what you said. They may not remember what you did, but they'll remember how you made them feel. And to me, that's what I think is the most important thing. If you can look back on life and have other people look back on life and say, geez, some of the best times I had was sitting in the backyard smoking a cigar with Anthony and his friends and family and laughing about God knows what. I think that makes you the richest person in life.
I love it. All right, so let's stay on the light side of things. What's your favorite Chicago summer tradition?
Oh man, favorite summer Chicago tradition. And that really may be the most difficult question you asked. Chicago land, like Chicago adjacent, I say grabbing an ice from Johnny's.
Okay.
You grab an ice from Johnny's on North Avenue.
That first one of the summer, right? Like that.
Yeah,
that
you
nice
wait in line
day.
for about 20 minutes, shuffle through, get an ice. The lemon wedge is still in there. I think that's a good staple of it. A walk on the lakeside. I'm revealing my secret spot here, but Lakeshore and Irving Park Road, They got a great walking path up there. I think it's one of
They
the
really
best
do.
views of downtown. It's so peaceful. The docks up there. I think that's probably one of my favorite, if not my
Love it.
favorite, summer tradition. That's actually how I tricked my wife into proposing to her. I told her that we had to take a walk at that spot to go meet my mentor Leonard,
Love
and
it.
I was using that as a diversion to get her where I needed to go propose. So yeah, that's the one I'm going with.
All right, so now you got somebody coming out of town, and you got to take them. They want to try a Chicago beef. What beef are you taking them to? I think you're going to say Johnny's, but from your previous answer, but you can take them anywhere. Where are you
Yeah,
going?
I think again Johnny's is the answer. I grew up on Johnny's, so Johnny's is
Me too.
probably it. Um,
You got a sleeper though. You're thinking about
yeah, but not for beef.
not for beef.
Not for
All right,
beef.
what about a restaurant? Just an Italian restaurant. You got to take them somewhere.
Topo Gigio for sure.
Okay.
That's a
Okay.
that's a great spot. Luca and Oak Brook, that's a great spot. Again, Chicagoland adjacent, but um, Torchio on Wells Street is another great
Man, you're
Italian
hitting some
joint.
good ones. Yeah, you're naming some good ones. They get me hungry. It's only it's early too.
Yeah. But I gotta give a plug to my favorites on the Northwest side, right off of Northwest Highway, next to the Emerald Island, Edison Park, my old and current stomping grounds. Snappy Dog.
Okay.
It's a little hot dog shack, no bigger than a minute. You can walk past it 10 times and miss it, unless it's around maybe 11 or 12 o'clock at night. Then there's a line around the block on Northwest Highway. They got the best mozzarella sticks in town. They're snappy sticks. They're about as big as your face and delicious. And
Amen.
I always tell people you got to go there because everyone sleeps on Snappy Dog. They forget that it's there.
Yeah, I'm a few blocks from there right now, my friend. So there you go.
Oh, well, now
Yeah,
you're gonna make me hungry.
I'm in Edison Park, you know. But yeah, that's funny. I got another good one for you. If you could have dinner with any Chicagoan, living or dead, doesn't matter. Who would it be?
Michael Jordan,
Awesome, awesome.
without
All right,
hesitation. Michael Jordan,
Cubs Sox.
Cubs.
Okay. How do you feel about PCA? Okay. Yeah. All right. No big deal. I just had to ask you. You know.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I don't know if you remember Corey Patterson. I like Corey Patterson a lot.
yeah,
We had a couple real good years, and I look at PCA and I'm like, he's in his head. I'm like, he's gonna be okay, but I feel like he's got a lot of Corey Patterson in him. So we'll see.
yeah. Everyone's got to slow down.
Got to slow down. It really does. Well, it really does matter. Well, this has been a really a great interview, man. I had a few more bonus questions for you that are kind of fun. But to be honest with you, you answered a lot of the questions as we were just talking. But what's one piece of advice that you received that you want to leave us with, that you want to put out there? Because I think that's really the most important thing is when everything's said and done, years from now, and the stories have been written. What do you hope that people can say that you protected?
I hope that people, talk about legacy. I hope that when people talk about me, hopefully they do. Um, I hope they felt like that I helped people, for me personally. And I think, in order for me to do that, I had to confront a lot of things with myself that I was afraid of. I had to understand humility a little bit better. And I think what is most important for people that want to advance, you know, I don't know if it applies to your professional life, but I think it does certainly apply to your personal life. Don't be afraid. The only time that you truly fail, is if you don't try. If you try, if you give it your best shot that you got, you're still learning something. You may not win the race, but hey, I learned that this way of training didn't work for me, so now I got to try something different. And you go back a year from now, and you're taking first prize, whatever it is. You're working on a project. Hey, I want to try something out of the box. Try it. If you lose, if it breaks down on you, at least you tried. Now you know that
Well,
doesn't work, and you can perfect your craft.
well, and I use this one. I'm going to sound cliche. You either win or you learn.
Yeah,
And that's what I,
absolutely.
and and I just from talking to you for about 40 minutes, I often talk about like for me, I like to consider like I try to pray, stay at Prism, and just let God's light. He gave us these talents, and I try to tell my kids our job's to figure out what those talents are and then use them and give them back. Right? The advice you just gave. It's so meaningful, and I want so many people to hear that because it means so much. The service, the leadership, but just the protecting of the values. And I think that, I don't know, it's very hopeful. And I think it's, if anyone has information, because I do want to grow, the Wings, the Men's Alliance, how can they reach out to you, Anthony? Because that's important too.
Sure. So Wings, you can find their website at wingsprogram.com. We have a number of different ways that you can get a hold of us. For anyone that is specifically looking for help, we do have a 24-hour hotline. That number is 847-221-5680. Our general line is 847-519-7820. And if you have any interest in getting involved, we have volunteer programs. We have training courses that people can take to get more involved in the organization, do more advocate style work. Email is wings, WINGS, at wingsprogram.com. And if you go to the wingsprogram.com website, the event for the Men's Alliance is still up there. We are still taking, I believe, sponsorship packets. You could still buy, pardon me, you could still buy tickets. And that again is on June 11th from 11 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. And it's at the Four Seasons Hotel at 120 East Delaware in Chicago.
That's absolutely wonderful, Anthony, information. Thank you so much. I don't think there's much of a higher calling than to serve your community, and to see what you're doing, it excites me. And I think we got to talk outside of all this. We'll go have a coffee or a cocktail, and thank you for all you do, man. Thank you for your leadership, your service, and I look forward to talking again. Really appreciate you, sir.
Thank you. No, I appreciate the time today, and I'll take you up on that coffee.
All right, brother. We'll talk soon.
All right. Have a good one. Thank you.
You too. All right, guys. Well, I just want to say thank you again for watching this podcast with Between Sets, and I want to thank Anthony again. I love singing, but I love these podcasts. I love these conversations, these communications, and I really mean it from my heart. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch these. Thank you guys for coming out to the shows and giving me positive feedback on this. And if you know somebody that could hear some encouraging stuff, let them hear this. Share it. This week we got Tuesday, Chicago Prime. It feels like home there. We slow things down 6 to 9 p.m. It's in Schaumburg. Absolutely beautiful. Wednesday I crossed off my calendar because I got some special thing I got going on. Meeting some of the boys. I'm trying to get involved a little bit myself. So we got that meeting. And then Friday, local spot, Coletti's. Very excited about that. And then Saturday we're back up in Wisconsin. It's a wonderful bar, and they opened it in 2025. It's called Schmucks. It's a little hole in the wall, man, but it's fun. And the bartender there, he's such a fun guy. It's a great time, and it should be a great week. Very humbled, guys. So thank you again, and I'm going to leave you with one of my dad's favorite guys. Suddenly I turned around and she was standing there with silver bracelets on her wrist and flowers in her hair. She walked up to me so gracefully and took my crown of thorns. Come in, she said, I'll give you shelter from the storm. God bless, guys, and have a great week. Until next week. And we got Father Tony coming, which means the Pope's like childhood best friend, so be a good interview, guys.